The Silent Vanguard. Captain Morgan Reeves stood on the bridge of the UES Thunderchild, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of tactical displays. The ship, humanity's newest destroyer-class vessel, cut through the darkness of space with predatory grace, its angular hull designed not for beauty but for efficiency. 12 years in deep space had taught Reeves to trust his instincts, and right now something felt off about the silence near the Arcturus boundary. "Status report," he ordered, eyes fixed on the vast emptiness ahead. Lieutenant Commander Aisha Ndi, his XO, responded without looking up from her console. "All systems nominal, Captain. Sensor sweep shows nothing unusual within standard range." Reeves drummed his fingers against the command chair's armrest. "Extended sweep. Push it to maximum." "Sir." NDA raised an eyebrow, but complied. "That'll light us up like a beacon to anyone watching." "Someone is watching," Reeves replied. "I can feel it." The tactical officer, Lieutenant Wei, suddenly straightened. "Contact. Multiple signatures emerging at bearing 047, extreme range. They weren't there a second ago, sir." "Classification." Wei's fingers danced across his console. "Unknown configuration. Biomechanical signatures unlike anything in our database." They're massive, Captain." The main view screen shifted to show what the sensors had detected. Emerging from what appeared to be self-generated spatial distortions came 12 vessels of breathtaking design. Unlike the utilitarian military aesthetics of human ships, these craft looked like they had been grown, rather than built, iridescent, organic curves that pulsed with internal light. The smallest dwarfed the Thunderchild by at least 3 times. "They're beautiful," whispered Communications Officer Rodriguez. "Beautiful doesn't mean friendly," Reeves countered. "Tactical alert. Shields up, but keep weapons cold. Let's not start anything we don't have to." The Thunderchild's systems hummed as power redistributed to defensive systems. Unlike older vessel designs, nothing about the ship's external appearance changed, a deliberate design choice that kept enemies guessing about the ship's readiness state. "We're being scanned," Wei reported. "Unusual frequencies. They're hitting us with something that looks like quantum resonance patterns." NDA leaned forward. "Are they trying to hack us?" "Unknown, but our countermeasures are holding." Rodriguez's console lit up. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. They've somehow broken our encryption protocol in seconds." Reeves nodded. On screen. The view screen flickered, and the bridge crew found themselves looking at a being unlike any they had encountered before. Its body appeared to be composed of crystalline structures that shifted colors with each movement, multiple compound eyes arranged around what might be a head, and appendages that seemed to phase in and out of solidity. "Young species," the being spoke, its voice somehow perfectly rendered into English without any apparent translation device. "I am Grand Sentinel Zillar of the Viridian Concordance. We have observed your expansion into this sector and have come to guide you toward proper integration into the galactic community." Reeves stood, straightening his uniform. "This is Captain Morgan Reeves of the United Earth ship Thunderchild. We welcome peaceful contact with your civilization." The alien's colors shifted to what appeared to be amusement. "Peace is guaranteed through proper hierarchy, Captain. The Viridian Concordance has shepherded countless emerging species for over 80,000 years. Your civilization is but an infant, barely a millennium into technological development. We will now begin the assessment process to determine your proper place in the order." Reeves felt his jaw tighten. "With respect, Grand Sentinel, humanity determines its own place. We're open to friendly relations, trade, and cultural exchange, but not to being placed in anyone's hierarchy." The Viridian's colors darkened. "Resistance to assessment is typically a sign of primitive development. Perhaps a demonstration will clarify the situation." The being gestured, and one of the smaller Viridian vessels moved forward. "They're powering weapons," Wei called out. "Hold steady," Reeves ordered. "Let's see what they're showing us." The Viridian ship directed what appeared to be a beam of pure energy toward a small, uninhabited asteroid nearby. The beam touched the rock, and in an instant, the asteroid transformed from lifeless stone to a complex crystalline structure that began to pulse with the same bioluminescence as the Viridian ships. "Impressive transmutation technology," Nindiai whispered. Ziller's colors brightened. "This is but the simplest application of Viridian science. We reshape matter at the quantum level. Your species' crude manipulation of elements through mechanical means is a phase we evolved beyond 70,000 years ago." Reeves nodded appreciatively. "That's quite a display, Grand Sentinel. Would you like to see one of ours?" Without waiting for a response, he turned to Wei. "Target a similar asteroid. Kinetic penetrator, standard yield." The Thunderchild's main weapon, a railgun accelerator running the length of the ship's spine, hummed quietly as it powered up. There was no beam, no dramatic light show. A projectile simply left the ship at a significant fraction of light speed, struck the crystalline asteroid the Viridians had just transformed, and shattered it into dust. "Crude but effective," Reeves commented. "We find that sometimes the simplest solutions work best." The Viridians' colors cycled rapidly through patterns the human crew couldn't interpret. "You destroyed our creation with a projectile weapon." The alien's tone conveyed disbelief more than anger. "Sometimes old ideas still work," Reeves replied. "Now shall we discuss that cultural exchange as equals?" Ziller's response came after a long pause. "Your species requires further study. Your technological path is unexpected, primitive, yet somehow effective." "We get that a lot," Reeves said with a slight smile. "But don't mistake functional for primitive. Humanity learned long ago that survival doesn't always come from the most elegant solution." The standoff continued for several tense moments before Ziller spoke again. "We will withdraw temporarily to consult the concordance. Your resistance to proper assessment is unprecedented." As the transmission ended, Nindiai moved closer to Reeves. "Captain, they're regrouping. Their ships are forming some kind of symmetric pattern." "Tactical formation," Reeves guessed. "But look at it. It's too perfect, too rigid. There's no practical advantage to that arrangement." Wei's console beeped urgently. "Energy buildup across their fleet, Captain. They're coordinating some kind of attack." "Evasive pattern Delta," Reeves ordered calmly. "And notify the 7th Fleet. Tell Admiral Katri she might want to speed up her arrival." The Thunderchild moved with surprising agility for its size, breaking the expected response pattern. As it did, the Viridian vessels fired in unison, a spectacular convergence of energy beams that intersected precisely where the human ship had been moments before. "They telegraphed that attack for nearly 15 seconds, Reeves noted. "Return fire. Targeting systems only. Let's disable, not destroy." The human vessel's response wasn't beautiful or coordinated like the Viridians. It was asymmetric, unpredictable, and brutally efficient. Railgun rounds struck with surgical precision, disrupting the bioorganic systems of 3 Viridian vessels. Electronic warfare suites broadcast interference patterns that seemed to cause physical pain to the living components of the alien ships. "They're in disarray," Wei reported with surprise. "Their formation is breaking down." On the view screen, the magnificent Viridian fleet's perfect symmetry had dissolved into chaos. Several ships drifted, their luminescence flickering erratically. Others attempted to regroup, but without the coordinated whole, they seemed unsure how to proceed. A new transmission cut through the confusion. Xylar appeared again, but the beam's colors were muted, pulsing slowly. "This is not according to established patterns. Your species fights without harmony, without beauty." "We fight to win," Reeves answered simply. "Beauty is for peacetime." "The concordance will need to reevaluate its approach to your kind," Xylar conceded. "We will withdraw to consider this encounter." As the Viridian ships retreated, folding back into their spatial distortions, Nindiai approached Reeves. They could have brought more ships, more firepower. Why didn't they? Because they've never needed to, Reeves said thoughtfully. I suspect we're the first species in a very long time that didn't immediately bow to their demonstrations or their hierarchy. The tactical console chimed. Captain, 7th Fleet has arrived. Admiral Catry is requesting a status report. Reeves gazed at the stars where the alien ships had vanished. Tell her the situation is stable for now, but to keep the fleet at ready status. Our new friends will be back, and next time, it won't underestimate us. As the Thunderchild moved to rendezvous with the human fleet, Reeves couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy today. For 80,000 years, the Viridians had shaped the development of younger species. Now they had encountered one that refused to be shaped, and neither humanity nor the ancient concordance would ever be the same. Evolution through fire. The Viridian convergence chamber pulsed with discordant colors as the High Council processed Grand Sentinel Ziller's report. Unlike human deliberative bodies with their debates and raised voices, the Viridians communicated through synchronous light patterns, their crystalline bodies flashing in complex sequences that conveyed not just information but emotional context. Unprecedented, pulsed Eldervox, the Council's oldest member whose crystalline form had grown so complex over millennia that younger Viridians could barely comprehend the depths of the patterns. In 83,000 cycles, no emerging species has ever responded to first contact assessment with effective resistance. Their technology is contradictory, responded Sentinel Prime Nixus. Primitive metallurgy and projectile weapons, yet sophisticated electromagnetic shielding and tactical systems that countered our quantum resonance attacks. Ziller's form dimmed slightly, the Viridian equivalent of humility. I misinterpreted their capability based on appearance. Their vessels lack the harmonic integration we associate with advanced design, yet they function with remarkable efficiency. The chamber's central crystal, which recorded all council proceedings, flared brightly. The question before us is clear, intoned Grand Arbiter Thelx, whose position granted her final authority in matters of species integration. Do we initiate standard containment protocols for a potentially disruptive species, or do we attempt a modified approach? The lights in the chamber shifted through spectral progressions as the council members deliberated. Finally, Thelx's crystalline form pulsed decisively. We will dispatch the Harmony fleet under Grand Admiral Corix. The humans must be shown their proper place through overwhelming demonstration, not through destruction, but through irrefutable evidence of our superiority. Ziller's form flickered with what might have been uncertainty. I recommend caution, Arbiter. There is something unpredictable about these humans. Their approach to warfare lacks our aesthetic coherence, but compensates with pragmatic effectiveness. That is precisely why they must be guided now, before their development progresses further along this disharmonious path. Thelx concluded. The decision is made. The Harmony fleet departs immediately. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Thunderchild, Captain Reeves studied the tactical projections with Admiral Catry and her staff. The holographic display showed the deployment of Earth's 7th Fleet across the Arcturus boundary. 27 warships positioned in an apparently random pattern that actually represented the optimal defensive spread based on thousands of combat simulations. Their technology is at least 3 centuries beyond ours in some areas, Reeves explained, highlighting the sensor readings from the Viridian ships. Their quantum manipulation capabilities make our best efforts look primitive. Admiral Catry, a compact woman whose calm demeanor belied her reputation for tactical brilliance, nodded thoughtfully. Yet you disabled 3 of their vessels with conventional weapons. They weren't expecting resistance, Reeves clarified. Next time, they'll be prepared. Will there be a next time? Asked Commodore Jackson, the fleet's intelligence officer. Count on it, Reeves replied. Their reaction wasn't anger so much as confusion. We violated their understanding of how developing species should behave. That's not something they'll ignore. Catry manipulated the holographic display, expanding the sensor range. We've detected unusual spatial distortions forming at the edge of our sensor network, much larger than before. They're coming back, Reeves confirmed. And they're bringing friends. The Admiral straightened her uniform. Then we'll be ready. All ships to battle stations. Implement Adaptive Protocol Theta. As klaxons sounded throughout the fleet, Reeves returned to the Thunderchild's bridge, where his crew waited at their stations. Status report. All systems at combat readiness, NINDA confirmed. Fleet-wide electronic warfare suites synchronized. Countermeasures loaded. We looked up from tactical. Captain, massive spatial distortion forming. It's at least 20 times larger than the previous event. The view screen shifted to show what could only be described as a tear in the fabric of space itself, pulsing with bioluminescent energy. From within this magnificent portal emerged not dozens but hundreds of Viridian vessels. They flowed into normal space like a living constellation, arranging themselves into concentric rings around a central vessel that dwarfed all others, a massive crystalline structure that resembled a blooming flower, easily 15 kilometers in diameter. That's not a show of force, Reeves murmured. That's a statement of absolute superiority. The communication system activated without prompting, bypassing all security protocols. The bridge crew found themselves looking at a Viridian, even more elaborate than Zilar, its crystalline body composed of impossibly complex patterns that shifted through colors humans had no names for. I am Grand Admiral Corix of the Viridian Concordance, the being announced, its voice resonating with harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. I have come to correct a misunderstanding. The Concordance does not seek conflict with developing species, but proper guidance is non-negotiable. Witness the Harmony Fleet, a mere fraction of our civilization's capability, and understand your place in the greater order. Reeves exchanged glances with India before responding. Grand Admiral, this is Captain Reeves. We recognize your technological advancement and respect your ancient civilization. However, humanity has its own path to follow. We don't require guidance. We seek equals for mutual exchange. Corix's form pulsed with what might have been amusement. Equality is earned through achievement, young species. Your resistance to natural order suggests immaturity. Observe. The massive central Viridian vessel began to pulse with increasing intensity. The energy built until it released a wave that spread outward, not as an attack, but as a transformation. As it passed through the sector, asteroids, space debris, even the interstellar dust itself began to crystallize and restructure, forming an intricate, living architecture that spanned thousands of kilometers. We reshape reality itself, Corix stated. This is but a fraction of Viridian science. Now, will you accept your proper place in the hierarchy, or must we demonstrate more persuasively? Admiral Caitry's voice came through Reeves' private channel. Stall them, Captain. Fleet deployment at 70%. Reeves nodded imperceptibly. That's quite impressive, Admiral Corix. Our scientists would be fascinated to study such technology. Perhaps we could arrange an exchange of knowledge. Exchange implies equality. Corix responded dismissively. Your appropriate role is as students, not peers. Then perhaps a demonstration of what your potential students have learned on their own. Reeves suggested. Without waiting for a response, he signaled why. Throughout the human fleet, a coordinated sequence activated, not the synchronized perfection of Viridian harmony, but a cascading chain of calculated chaos. Each ship launched what appeared to be simple probes in seemingly random directions. What is this? Corix demanded, colors shifting to patterns suggesting confusion. Just a little something we've been working on, Reeves replied casually. The probes suddenly accelerated, each following an erratic path that made tracking them nearly impossible. When they reached certain points in space, they detonated, not with explosive force, but with precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses. Where the pulses intersected, they created interference patterns that disrupted the quantum fields maintaining the Viridian crystalline transformations. The magnificent living architecture began to destabilize, sections returning to their original state as the carefully maintained quantum coherence collapsed. Several Viridian vessels nearest to the intersection points flickered, their bioluminescence faltering. Impossible. Corix's voice had lost its harmonious quality. You cannot understand the quantum principles involved, let alone counter them. We don't need to fully understand something to find its vulnerabilities, Reeves explained. Humanity has a long history of confronting superior forces and finding unconventional solutions. The Viridian fleet began to reorganize, shifting into what was clearly a combat formation. But as they moved, the human fleet executed its own maneuver, not in perfect symmetry, but in a seemingly chaotic pattern that somehow placed each vessel at precisely the optimal firing position. Final warning, came Admiral Khatri's voice, now broadcasting to the entire Viridian fleet. The United Earth Defense Force does not seek conflict with the Viridian Concordance, but we will defend our sovereignty. Your technology may be more advanced, but our tactical systems predict a 47% loss of your fleet capability should hostilities commence. Is that acceptable to demonstrate your superiority? The Viridian command vessel pulsed with colors that suggested intense internal communication. Finally, Corix responded, "Your species defies conventional development patterns. You lack the quantum manipulation capabilities that define civilizational advancement. Yet you've developed countermeasures to technologies you shouldn't comprehend." Different evolutionary paths, Reeves suggested. You evolved toward harmony with quantum fields. We evolved through constant adaptation to threats and challenges. Both approaches have merits. There was a long pause before Corix responded. The Concordance must reevaluate its assessment protocols. Your species represents an anomaly that requires study. We propose a temporary armistice while both civilizations reconsider their position. Admiral Khatri stepped into view beside Reeves. We accept your armistice, Grand Admiral. Perhaps we can establish a diplomatic exchange to better understand each other's perspective. The massive Viridian fleet began to withdraw, their perfect formations maintained even in retreat. As the last vessels disappeared back through the spatial tier, Khatri turned to Reeves. "They'll be back," she stated. "Yes," Reeves agreed, "but next time, perhaps as diplomats rather than guides." 6 months later, Captain Reeves stood in Earth's primary diplomatic center as a delegation of Viridians materialized through a controlled spatial distortion. Their crystalline forms had been modified to better interact with human environments, less radiant but still breathtakingly beautiful. Leading them was a familiar form, Grand Sentinel Zillar. "Captain Reeves," the Viridian greeted, colors shifting in what humans had learned was a sign of respect. The Concordance has spent these months in deep reflection. For over 80,000 years, we have guided younger species based on our understanding of proper developmental progression. You are the first to challenge that understanding. Reeves nodded. And what conclusions has the Concordance reached? That perhaps there is more than one valid path to advancement, Zyler admitted. Your species lacks our harmony with quantum reality. Yet you've developed innovations we never considered because they lay outside our evolutionary experience. The Concordance proposes a true exchange, not as teachers and students, but as civilizations with different perspectives. Behind them, a human scientist was already engaged in animated discussion with a Viridian specialist, holographic displays showing the principles behind both humanity's electromagnetic shield technology and the Viridians' quantum resonance drives. "I think we have much to learn from each other," Reeves agreed, extending his hand in the human gesture of agreement. Zillar extended a crystalline appendage that shifted form to match Reeves' hand. Indeed, perhaps the true mark of advancement is not technological superiority, but the wisdom to recognize value in different approaches. As the diplomatic teams moved toward the conference chambers, Reeves couldn't help but smile. Humanity had earned something unprecedented in the galaxy, the respect of an ancient civilization, not through submission to their guidance, but by standing firm on their own evolutionary path. The metal beasts of Earth had met the crystalline gods of old, and neither would ever be the same again.